Hey guys, good morning. Happy Monday. It's Daryl here. It's 3:45 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. All right, what I'm going to talk about here. I'm going to talk about you guys. I'm sure you've heard the phrase "people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones." That's where I'm going to go with this. All right, it concerns the interview that President Biden did yesterday on CBS before the Super Bowl, and it concerns the review that a certain right-leaning New York rag newspaper talked about. They did an article. I'm gonna have the link to this New York newspaper right down below. I'm being more careful these days with YouTube and everything. I'm not mentioning the name of the actual. I'm not mentioning the name of the newspaper right here, but the article will be down below so you guys can read it for yourselves. I think it's an opinion piece. And this is what this New York newspaper is basically saying. It looks like they did a quick opinion review of Biden's interview yesterday. What they're saying is they're insinuating that President Biden is trying to shield Hunter, trying to take away to use smoke and mirrors and to hide the fact of this laptop stuff and the China dealing. And whatever went on there. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I've tried to look into this before, and I really don't get it. Hunter Biden was a private citizen. It's not illegal to make business dealings with China. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Every time I've tried to look into this Hunter Biden China laptop story, I don't. Seeing as the last president, and I'm going to get to this in a second, believe me. I'm going to get to this. I'm going to get to the glass houses part. You know, I don't really see what they're getting at. It really seems like, you have a president hasn't put his business aside. He claimed he put his business in possession of his kids. And from what I think the number is $617 million profit that Trump Enterprises made while he was president. $617 million. That was the number I found here. So to start talking about how the president's son had some kind of deal with China or whatever back years ago, it doesn't really interest me. This is what the Trump supporter, the Trump people, the right wing, the conservatives, the Republicans are always harp on. Apparently, in this laptop, it refers to the big guy. And they think that's talking about Joe Biden. They're trying to connect Joe Biden. They're trying to connect our president to Hunter's dealings. Now, first of all, I didn't even see anything that these dealings were illegal. And the hypocrisy on this is unbelievable. And believe me, I'm dying to get to this. Stick with me here because there's a sweet ending to this video. All right, so this New York newspaper is saying that Joe Biden does, they're basically saying that Joe Biden's full of it. He's exaggerating the joy that his son is out of addiction, and he's just trying to hide Hunter's guilt. And I just find this, I find it disgusting, really. The main reason, I'm going to tell you guys, I've never told anybody this. One of the main reasons I got clean, that pushed me to get clean, is I knew I was getting older. When I got clean for good, I was 40 years old. And I knew my parents wouldn't be around forever, specifically my mother. And I could not live with the fact, knowing that I didn't, that my relationships would still be one of a drug addict and a parent. I couldn't, I wanted to have a real relationship with my mother before one of us weren't here anymore. That was the biggest driving force for me to get clean. Let me say this too. If you haven't been in addiction, it's hard to explain. I remember going all the way back to I was 10 or 12 years old. I remember trying to talk my mother into buying brandy at a drugstore because I had a cold. I had seen something on TV that a sip of brandy would help. And I had never even used drugs or drinking or anything at that point, but I've always had this urge that I know that I've had this disease for my entire life because I've never felt right. I've always felt like I needed to change the way I feel. Not until I was 40 years old and I went into MAT, medically assisted treatment. did I actually feel normal for the first time in my life. And now I actually feel normal. I'm happy. I don't feel like I need anything else. But I've had this feeling going back all the way since I could remember, before I even ever used any kind of drug or alcohol, like I just said. I don't know why this is. I don't know what it is about chemical makeup in my brain, but let me continue here. I've done things that I am extremely ashamed of. People that aren't familiar with this don't know what it's like. We know the things we're doing are wrong. Now, I don't know if Hunter Biden did something wrong or not. But my point is that being an addict, he's been an addict his entire life. He was born with that. I know that from my past experiences. And I know that I remember lying to my family to get like 30 or 50 bucks so I could go down and get my day's worth of opiates. I remember leaving the house and just crying. I was like 38 years old, and I cried in my car all the way to the dealer's house because I hated myself for lying to my parents, my mother. And you're doing wrong, but this drive, this is what leads to depression and suicide, is because you feel like you can't stop yourself. You know what you're doing is wrong, but you can't stop yourself. You're doing things that you never thought that are wrong, and you never would have believed you would ever, that you're going to be embarrassed your entire life for doing. But the drive to feel normal is the most overwhelming thing. It goes beyond eating or sleeping or anything else. It's the driving factor in your brain. Your brain becomes this enemy that just moves you to do this. And this is, I remember feeling like I just can't live like this anymore. I'm not in control of myself. It's a terrible feeling. My point here is that if perhaps Hunter Biden might have done, I'm not making excuses for him. But I'm just trying to get people to understand what addiction's like. Like I said, what he did, he's responsible for it. If there was any business dealings with China that were illegal or whatever, he's going to be responsible for them, just like I'm responsible for everything I did during my addiction. But I'm trying to give you guys a little understanding of what it's like here. All right. So this newspaper is tearing into, they're basically saying that they call it, the title of the article is Tricky Joe Biden. And like he's trying to cover, using smoke and mirrors to try to distract from China and his laptop and all that. And look, and talk about how proud he is of his son's overcoming his addiction. I think this is just an extremely low blow. But here's what I'm dying to talk about. So this has just come out. I'm going to have the links down below. I believe BuzzFeed came out with it and Business Insider. The two links are down below. Apparently, the Trump organization this summer made a deal with Parlor. There was a business transaction, a business proposition in the works, where Trump would get 40% ownership of Parlor if he used Parlor exclusively, and anything he said as president, any announcements, instead he would switch from Twitter to Parlor, and that the Trump organization would get 40% of Parlor, the business, if he did all of his announcements on Parlor and didn't do them anywhere else for at least 4 hours, and then link them all back to Parlor when he did connect them on Twitter or Facebook. All right, now this is a gross violation of ethics and bribery, and I don't know what else. It is, the president of the United States is getting wealthy, and his organization, and you could connect him to it because he's a main player in this. Because in order for this transaction to go through, he's part of it. The reason for this deal is he has to make his announcements on Parlor. So you can't say that he's not involved in this, that it was actually the Trump organization and not Donald Trump. Because what Donald Trump's doing, announcing on Parlor, is part of the whole deal. All right? So this was last summer. Now, apparently, there was some White House counsel that obviously saw that this was, and this is hard to believe, but there was actually White House counsel that thought this was over the top, and they actually could be misconstrued as ethics violations and bribery. So they tried to put a stop to it, and the talks were halted for a while. After he lost the election, the talks continued with Parlor again, and then on January 6th, Parlor was booted from Amazon, Apple, and all the other ones, and the business dealings became moot. But I'm going to put the links down below. Now, this is the grossest violation of ethics, of bribery, of criminal violations, you name it. And this is what I'm talking about, people in glass houses. You know, they're talking about Hunter Biden, a private citizen, and maybe something had to do with China. I still don't know what they're talking about. And meanwhile, Donald Trump is I was going to use a much worse word, but I got to be careful here. I'm going to use violating. He was violating the ethics of the presidency of the United States this whole summer while trying to make this deal with Parlor. That's what I mean by people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Meanwhile, Republicans are still defending the great Donald Trump from everything that happened on January 6th. This is why we call it a cult. I'll be back later with another video. You guys have a good Monday.